We're at one of the most amazing places on the planet, Niagara Falls. Come on. Did you know that Niagara Falls is comprised of 3 sets of falls? The American Falls, the Bridal Veil Falls, and the Canadian Falls. Check this out. The American Falls and the Bridal Veil Falls are 176 feet high. That's as tall as a 17-story building. They are 1,060 foot wide. This is the best. 150,000 gallons of water flows over them per second. That's huge. But check this out. It gets better. The Canadian Falls are also called the Horseshoe Falls. Why? I'm glad you asked. Because they're shaped like a horseshoe. I know what you're thinking. Thank you, Captain Obvious. The Canadian Falls are not quite as tall as the others, coming in at only 167 feet tall. They are 2,600 feet across, and an amazing 600,000 gallons of water flow over them per second. 600,000 gallons a second. Can you imagine that? No one can imagine that! No one can imagine that! 600,000 gallons is nearly enough water to serve a small community for one day, and it goes over these falls in 1 second. Now that's amazing. You gotta tell me action. Water is an amazing thing. Did you know that 2/3 of the Earth's surface is covered with water? What does that mean? That means there is nearly twice as much water on the planet than there is land. We're looking at 1/5 of the world's fresh water supply. So how does that water get from here to our homes? Now that's an amazing question.
I think 1,000 Google gallons of water in the world.
I think there are lots of gallons of water in the world because we still have lots of it left, and a lot of it keeps pouring down from the sky.
I don't know.
I think there are 1,100 gallons of water in the world. I think water comes through a river, and then it goes to a water treatment plant and goes through all those things, and then it goes right to your faucet. I think the water in our faucet comes from the water treatment plant.
I think the water that comes through a faucet comes from underground.
I don't know.
Water, also known as H2O. Agua, as our neighbors to the south would say. Absolutely vital to all life.
Life cannot exist without it.
Thanks, Pete. Be that as it may, one cannot drink just any water. It must be clean. Rivers, lakes, ponds may have bacteria or other contaminants that make the water harmful for human use. Here we have 2 water samples. They both look the same. They both appear to be clean. However, one is for consumption, the other is not. My worthy assistant will attempt to choose.
That's water. There's salt in that water!
Absolutely wrong. There's much more salt water on the Earth's surface than there is fresh water, but we don't drink salt water. All our drinking water comes from freshwater sources. Sources like lakes, rivers, reservoirs. But these sources may have fish and other living creatures in them, so the water must be cleaned before we can drink it. When we come back, we'll show you how that happens.
Did you know? groundwater, that's water in the ground, can take a lifetime to travel just 1 mile? Well, that gives new meaning to being slower than dirt.
I think what makes water dirty is sand and dirt and dust.
Well, I think that at the water treatment plant, to get the water clean, they put special chemicals like lime and stuff like that.
I have no idea.
I think dirty water gets clean by, I don't know, they use chemicals and stuff like that.
In order to have water that we can drink, we need to make sure that it's clean and safe to drink. It needs to be filtered and purified. We're at the water treatment plant in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and that's what they do. They treat the water so that the people of Fort Wayne can drink it, they can cook with it, they can wash their clothes, take a shower, or whatever else they might need clean water for. We're gonna meet my friend Vicki Zare. She's gonna explain to us the process of treating the water. Come on.
Hi, Keith, how are you?
I'm fine, how are you?
I'm good.
So you're gonna show us how water's treated.
That's right, I'm excited about you guys coming to visit us today. Let's go take a look down here.
Alrighty. Vicki, could you walk us through the process of treating the water?
Sure. Our first step is in the chemical feed area. And what happens in this area is that we add certain chemicals to the river water that comes in the back of the plant. First chemical that we add is lime. And what lime does is it gets rid of the calcium and magnesium, which causes hardness in the water.
Okay.
The second chemical we add is iron sulfate, and we call this our coagulating agent. And if you can imagine syrup in the water, iron sulfate's kind of like syrup, and it's really sticky, and it causes things to stick to it. And in the water treatment industry, we like things to stick to the iron sulfate so they can get nice and big and fat and settle to the bottom.
What exactly is coagulation?
Wait a minute! I don't want you to think that I'm just eye candy that they got to host a show. I know what coagulation means. I just asked for your benefit. All right, roll them!
Well, actually, what coagulation is, the water has negative charges. Imagine your thumb's a negative charge, and we have a negative charge this way, a negative charge this way. And so they don't like each other.
Okay.
And if you add coagulating agent in there, a positive, things will start to stick together. And when things start to stick together, they get heavy and settle to the bottom.
Awesome, great.
Okay, and the last chemical we add is our carbon. And this is what gets rid of the taste and odor and the pesticides in the water. And sometimes we get pesticides when the farmers use pesticides and it rains. Those runoff eventually gets to the river and heads to the back of our plant. Right. And it comes right here, and so we have to remove it.
All right, wonderful. Vicki, could you tell me what is going on in these tanks out here?
Sure. These tanks are what we call our flocculation tanks. And when we added our chemicals in the earlier step, they were rapidly mixed together. Now they're in these flocculation tanks, and we're going to mix them nice and slowly. Okay. And what we'd like to happen in here is we'd like to get the iron sulfate, which I told you before is like syrup. We'd like to mix that nice and slow so that everything in the water, all the dirt, including the chemicals that we added, like the lime, start to stick together and get real heavy and form like a snowflake of mud, which we call a flock. Okay. So we are forming flock in our flocculation tanks.
All right. So what's going on here, Vicki?
Well, actually, this is our settling tank. And all the dirty water from the previous process, which was our flocculation step, comes into this tank. And first it hits this baffle right here, which slows down the velocity of the water.
Is that the wood part?
Yep, the wood part is what we call the baffle, and the water hits that baffle and goes straight down. So we have all that dirty water at the bottom of this tank, and the clean water that's cleaner and lighter comes up to the top. And it'll go right across this wall over here into our next stage, which is called recarbonation. In our recarbonation process, we actually lower the pH. The lime in the previous step raised our pH up to about 11, and we want to lower it back down to about 9.
So why is it important to keep your pH level lower?
Well, what can happen if your pH is too low or too high? It can be disruptive to the pipes in the distribution system. Okay. And it could damage them and put pinholes in them.
Cut! Now I'll admit, I didn't have a clue what she was talking about. I was thinking like I wonder how they get the pee out. Carry on.
Is there anything else that you add at this point in the process?
Well, yes, very close to the recarbonation stage, we add fluoride to the water. Okay. And the reason we put fluoride in the water is to promote the health of young children's teeth.
Tell us a little bit about the process in this room.
Well, actually, this is my favorite room. In this room, we are undergoing the process of filtration. And what happens is, before we actually have the water come into this building, we add a little bit of chlorine dioxide to the water. And that is a chlorine agent that removes a lot of the bacteria and harmful chemicals that you can't see that can get you really sick. Then we actually put it in these filters right here, and these filters consist of 30 inches of sand, and the water goes through the sand, and the sand will catch other dirt, small microscopic dirt that you can't see. And then after we filter it, we add another chlorine species of chlorine, which we call chloramine, which is chlorine mixed with ammonia. And that type of chlorine lasts a very, very long time. So by the time it gets to your home, we still have some chlorine left in the water.
Now that the water's been treated, how does it get to our home?
Well, actually, after the filtration process, the water goes to an underground reservoir, which is located right across the street underneath our soccer field. And these pumps right here take the water from that reservoir and they pump it to your home. That reservoir is about 20 million gallons. And these pumps down here are capable of pumping anywhere from 8 to 16 million gallons of water from that reservoir to your home. And on average, we pump about 30 to 35 million gallons of water every day.
To the city of Fort Wayne.
Right, and at any time, periodically, there'll be 1, 2, or maybe 3 pumps on at a time.
Did you know 75% of a chicken is water? 95% of a tomato is water. 70% of an elephant is water. Man, that's a lot of water.
Well, a water tower is used to store water for a certain town.
A water tower is used to store water.
When your water gets turned off, they turn it back on and make sure water keeps getting to your faucet.
They store water in water towers because in case you run out of water.
You've seen these towers before. Have you ever wondered what they're for and what part they play in getting water to our home? Well, we're gonna meet my friend Dave Jones, and he's gonna give us some answers. Let's go see him. Hello, Dave. How are you today?
Very good, thank you.
Thanks for meeting with us today. Dave, I got a question. What is this thing?
This is the City of New Haven's water tower.
Okay.
We purchase water from the Fort Wayne filtration plant. It's pumped here for storage. It also helps pressurize the water system and add extra capacity, so when you turn on your faucet at home, you get water coming out.
All right, great. Where does this fall in line with the water system?
When we purchase water, it comes from the Fort Wayne filtration plant. It's pumped here. We open up a valve and fill the water tower. It's held in reserve then if needed throughout the community to help with the water pressure. So when you turn on your faucet at home or business, water comes out, voila.
Does it ever get empty?
Only under extreme circumstances. We do monitor to make sure that it stays full, and we have a chart that we read daily on that. If it would get empty or water's being used out of it, we open the valve back up to keep it full.
Who painted it?
The individuals that we bought the water tower from. It's kind of a specialized business, and as you can see from the height of it, it's not something everybody would want to do.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate you, my friend.
When there's a storm, you shouldn't be near water because it can electrocute you. And signs and look underwater if it's clear so you know where to jump in.
I need to be careful around a turtle because I have no idea what kind it is, and a poisonous sea snake.
That's it.
It's like a trampoline. I bounce on the surface of the trampoline, and the trampoline. Did you know that 2/3 of the Earth's surface is covered with water, And most of that water is salt water. The oceans are all salt water. Rivers, lakes, pools like this one are what we call fresh water. This is where we get our water to drink. When you are around bodies of water, there are a few safety tips you need to follow. For example, never swim alone. Only swim if there's a lifeguard. Never dive into the shallow end. Always obey posted rules. Wear personal flotation devices.
Did you know? Frozen water is 9% lighter than water that's not frozen. That's why ice floats. I guess you could say ice is like water on a diet. Well, maybe not. We momentarily interrupt this program to bring you this incredible story of amazing kids.
My name is Kai Garrick. I'm 13. I was skateboarding on my half pipe and I tried to do a 180 and I slammed really hard, but what I didn't know was there was a small nail sticking out of the half pipe and it left a huge bruise on my knee. Like 2 months later, my friend wanted me to scoot over at lunch and my knee locked up.
One day I was at work and I got a phone call from the school nurse saying that Kaya was in the clinic and that I need to come right away. And so we rushed down there. At that point, he was couldn't bend his knee, and we were really concerned because it just left him kind of immobile. So he walked out on crutches, and that day we took him to the doctor, and the doctor referred us to a specialist at that point.
I went to the doctor, and they said that they might want to have it checked out for an x-ray.
So we did an immediate x-ray, and during that x-ray, he came back probably 20 minutes later and said, got some, kind of alarming news. Your son has a chip, bone chip. It came out on the x-ray. But what I'm concerned about is all of the edges of his bones look like they're very brittle. And this is a condition that they typically see in 45, 50-year-old people. But it looked as though blood was not circulating through his bones.
Just knowing that if he did have the bone disease, that he wouldn't be able to do any of those physical activities, and he would probably end up in a wheelchair, and it breaks your heart.
After his MRI, we went back to the doctor, and he suggested scheduling surgery as quick as possible.
They recommended surgery to try to get that out, and we wanted to wait a while just to see what I thought about it, and I decided to go for it.
After talking with him, we said, sometimes this is the way God chooses to, take care of things through surgery, and that we didn't need to worry about it and, kind of talk. But it was still a very anxious time.
We've always encouraged our kids to pray, and they believe in God and know that He has the power to heal, and that He can, really carry us through any anxious time in life, whatever it may be.
It was just me and my dad there, and I prayed in my head. I didn't really it wasn't like an out loud prayer.
I think his question was at that time, can't God just come in and heal me? And I said, He can do that. And sometimes He does, and sometimes He works through a surgeon or, through an operation. And I said, but you can pray, however you feel led to pray. If you want God to heal your knee, it's not too late. But, it's God's choice. At that point, I think I prayed out loud, and he prayed to himself. But I think his particular prayer was probably the one that God heard just in faith, because, he really wanted to see God's hand at work.
I think that God, during that night, he shifted that chip back into my knee and just healed it right away.
I think it was maybe around an hour. The doctor came out, and he just sat down and maybe for 10, 12 seconds just kind of looked at us. And that's a really long time, as parents are waiting. He said, I really don't know what to tell you. He said there was nothing there. His bones are perfect. He showed us the pictures. At that point, we kind of smiled at each other and looked at each other like, wow, that's our God.
It was just like immediately to know that God heard my son's prayer was just so cool.
Where would we be without water? Pretty fish in the sea find it so hard to breathe. Whoa, where would we be without water? All the beaches dried up, just dust, so much hotter. Yes, I'll have lemon in my water. On second thought, no, I'll take it straight from the tap. But old chap, be sure that the blend, the mixture,
is precisely 2 hydrogen atoms to 1 oxygen.
That's the way I say. Well, where would we be without water? No vegetation, no help from the legislation. Well, where would we be without water? No one wants to be without indoor plumbing. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm afraid to say that the big game has been cancelled. No clean uniforms, and the AstroTurf just won't grow. But seriously though, I would prefer to know
that the hands of the baker that crafted this donut were in thoroughly.
Donut? No, thanks. Well, where would we be without water? Water towers help us wash our dogs and take showers. Well, where would we be without water? Over Niagara Falls, it's caught to make power. Well, where would we be without water? Pretty fish in the sea find it so hard to breathe. Well, where would we be without water? All the beaches dried up, just dust, so much hotter. Whoa, where would we be? Where would we be? Whoa, where would we be? Where would we be? Where would we be? Where would we be? Whoa, where would we be without our ground?
Water is a precious resource. We can't live without it. We need to take care of it and keep it clean. We're a lot like these 2 glasses of water. Without Jesus, we're like this dirty water, full of bad stuff. And this is how God sees us. But if we ask Jesus to forgive us, He comes in and cleans us up on the inside. You think about that the next time you go to your sink for a glass of water. Now that's amazing. We're at one of the most amazing places on the planet, Niagara Falls.
Hey Keith, I don't think this is it.
Well, actually it is.
No, I don't think so.
What? It's not?
No.
Well, that's amazing!
Be that as it may, one cannot drink just any water. It must be clean. Water. Water.
600,000 gallons a second! Can you imagine that? No one can imagine that!
Be that as it may, one cannot drink just any water. It must be clean. Rivers.
I needed to go this way.
Oh, I'm getting into it now.
I'm psyching you.
Or I'm not gonna be on there?
No, we're
What?
covered now.
Okay. And then can I do a...
Yeah.
Okay, good. We can do that in post. Am I doing okay though as far as...
Yeah.
He says I'm doing all right, so I believe him. I don't care what you say. That's... Where are you from? Canada, see? That's what I'm saying.
Ready?
We forgot our passports. Can't get over there. Second. I can imagine that. I blinked though.
A little more long.